At dawn, on the highway linking Accra to Lagos, the headlights of trucks stretch as far as the eye can see. Shipping containers, intercity buses, shared taxis. Every night, thousands of vehicles carry goods, workers, and ambitions along this coastal route. But have you ever wondered why West Africa's coastline is attracting so much global attention today? Where some see nothing more than a stretch of coastline, others see the next great engine of the global economy. Along just 1,000 kilometers of coastline, roughly the distance between Paris and Barcelona, one of the world's most promising urban corridors is beginning to take shape. And this is only the beginning. According to United Nations projections, Africa's population could reach nearly 3.9 billion people by 2100, representing almost 40% of the world's population. That single statistic changes everything. Much of this growth will be concentrated in cities, and nowhere is this transformation more spectacular than along this narrow coastal strip. 5 countries, tens of millions of people. One shared trajectory, rapid growth. From Nigeria to Ghana, through Benin, Togo, and Côte d'Ivoire, this is far more than a coastline, or even a collection of neighboring cities. It represents a profound geopolitical and economic shift. Every night, the lights of Lagos, Accra, and Abidjan glow almost continuously along the Atlantic coast, forming an expanding chain of cities that grows larger with every passing year. As Akinwumi Adesina, president of the African Development Bank, puts it, "A well-connected Africa will be a more competitive Africa. To boost trade, reduce transport costs, and integrate our economies, investing in regional corridors is essential." One day, this coastal corridor could rival China's Pearl River Delta or the northeastern seaboard of the United States. To put that into perspective, Berlin and Rome, separated by a similar distance, exchange more than $170 billion in goods every year. Between Lagos and Abidjan, trade remains only a fraction of that amount, revealing an enormous untapped opportunity. This coastline has become a living laboratory where Africa's cities of tomorrow are being built. Here, neighborhoods rise brick by brick, container by container, challenging long-held assumptions about urban development. What is happening here goes far beyond regional growth. It is about influence, economic power, and the future of an entire continent. West Africa is building its first truly integrated urban corridor, and its success will depend on one crucial challenge: transforming extraordinary population growth into lasting economic prosperity. But demographic growth alone is not enough. So, are we simply watching a handful of cities expand, or are we witnessing the birth of one of the most powerful urban corridors of the 21st century? Stay with us, because what you're about to discover may completely reshape the way you see Africa and the future of the global economy. Welcome to We Emerge, the best place to get inspired and make a difference. If you haven't subscribed yet, you can do so by clicking the subscribe button. Let's get started. Long overlooked, West Africa's coastline is now emerging as one of the world's newest urban epicenters. In 1960, sub-Saharan Africa was home to around 230 million people. Today, its population exceeds 1 billion and is growing nearly 3 times faster than the global average. By 2050, the Abidjan-Lagos corridor could be home to nearly 173 million people. Imagine almost the entire population of Russia concentrated along just 1,000 kilometers of coastline. That would make it one of the most densely populated urban regions on Earth. For many researchers, this region is already evolving into a megalopolis, a vast, continuous urban area where multiple major cities gradually merge into a single metropolitan corridor. Along some sections of the coast, urban development is already almost uninterrupted for more than 500 kilometers, progressively connecting Abidjan, Accra, Lomé, Cotonou, and Lagos into one expanding urban landscape. The term megalopolis was first introduced in the 1950s to describe the urban corridor stretching from Washington, D.C. to Boston in the United States, before later being applied to giant urban regions such as the Tokyo-Osaka corridor in Japan. So, what is driving this transformation? The answer is simple: demographics. The Abidjan-Lagos corridor already hosts more than 30 million residents and could surpass 50 million by 2050. Lagos alone welcomes nearly 5,000 new residents every single day, and that is where everything accelerates, illustrating the extraordinary pace of urbanization. In Lagos, this growth is impossible to miss. During rush hour, major highways become enormous parking lots, overcrowded buses, motorcycles weaving between cars, street vendors selling water and snacks through endless lines of traffic. Gridlock has become part of everyday life. For many residents, crossing the city can take several hours. Some arrive by bus from northern Nigeria. Others step off at Ojota bus terminal, carrying nothing more than a suitcase and an address scribbled on a piece of paper. Most have come in search of work and a chance to build a future in West Africa's largest city. And here's another remarkable statistic from the United Nations: 70% of Africa's population is under the age of 30. Yes, you heard that correctly. 7 out of every 10 Africans are younger than 30, making Africa the youngest continent on Earth. If this coastal corridor were a single country, it would already rank among the world's most dynamic consumer markets. But this story is about far more than population statistics. The transformation is visible in the urban landscape itself. This is a form of incremental urbanization, where residents build the city piece by piece. Cement depots, hardware stores, small neighborhood shops, entire communities rising one building at a time. The city is literally being constructed before our eyes. As Astrid Haas, economist and co-author of a major report on African urbanization, explains, urbanization is the megatrend reshaping the African continent. No country has achieved sustained development without strong urban planning. On a global scale, the comparison with other major urban corridors is striking. The northeastern United States, from New York to Boston, is home to around 22 million people across roughly 700 kilometers. Japan's Tokyo-Osaka corridor accommodates more than 80 million people along approximately 500 kilometers. The conclusion is becoming increasingly clear. The Abidjan-Lagos corridor is now following a comparable path, but with one crucial difference. Its population is growing even faster, while the urban planning needed to support that growth is still catching up. For forward-looking investors and seasoned observers, ignoring this transformation would mean missing one of the greatest opportunities of the 21st century. According to journalist and scholar Howard W. French, Africa has become one of the world's leading engines of urbanization, and it is along this coastline that some of the century's most significant urban transformations are unfolding. This reality challenges one of the most persistent misconceptions about Africa, that it remains largely rural. Cities such as Dakar, Lagos, Accra, and Abidjan already represent a rapidly expanding urban Africa. But beyond these well-known megacities, dozens of smaller capitals and secondary cities are also driving this transformation. Nouakchott, Cotonou, Ouagadougou, Kumasi, Kano. Many of these urban centers remain surprisingly overlooked. Take Onitsha, for example. With an urban population approaching 8.5 million people, it is now one of Africa's largest metropolitan areas, behind only Cairo and Lagos. At the heart of the city lies the enormous Onitsha main market, widely regarded as one of the largest markets in West Africa. Every day, thousands of traders buy and sell textiles, electronics, automobile parts, and countless other goods. Here, the urban economy rarely stops. To support this intense commercial activity, several West African cities are also modernizing their marketplaces. In Cotonou, 9 new urban markets have been built to provide cleaner, safer, and more efficient facilities for merchants, most of whom are women whose businesses sustain the region's everyday economy. One of the best examples is the former Dantokpa market, whose vendors have moved to the new PK3 market. Previously, this market covered nearly 18 hectares along the shores of Lake Nokoué. It is one of the largest open-air markets in West Africa and, according to estimates, generates more than 1 billion CFA francs in daily sales. Together, these cities paint the picture of an urban Africa that is vibrant, dynamic, complex, and rapidly evolving. And nowhere is this transformation more visible than along the coastline stretching from Abidjan to Lagos. So, how does this rapidly growing population power one of the world's fastest growing urban economies? If demographics are the engine, then the economy is the fuel. The Abidjan-Lagos corridor alone generates more than half of the gross domestic product of the economic community of West African states, approximately $371 billion. Some economists even estimate that this coastal strip accounts for nearly 75% of all economic activity in West Africa. Yet despite this enormous potential, trade between Lagos and Abidjan remains surprisingly limited. Annual trade amounts to only around $2 billion, compared with more than $170 billion exchanged each year between Berlin and Rome. Why such a gap? Part of the answer lies in the region's economic structure. Much of its wealth still comes from trade, ports, commerce, and services. Rather than being invested primarily in large-scale industrialization, a significant share of this wealth flows into real estate and land development, creating a powerful link between rapid urban expansion and economic growth. Across the region, policymakers are beginning to think beyond individual cities. Instead of planning city by city, they are increasingly adopting a corridor-based approach. Inspired by the world's largest metropolitan regions, this strategy allows governments and international development partners to better coordinate infrastructure investments while strengthening economic integration across ECOWAS. That vision is already becoming reality through a series of ambitious infrastructure projects. One of the most significant is the Abidjan-Lagos Highway. Stretching more than 1,028 kilometers, this 6-lane expressway will include 63 interchanges and is expected to cost approximately $15 billion. Its objective is straightforward: connect 5 national economies while dramatically improving the movement of people and goods across West Africa. By 2040, traffic along the corridor could reach between 25,000 and 60,000 vehicles every day. Another flagship project is the Lagos-Badagry Expressway, an essential section of the Trans-West African Coastal Highway, supported by the African Development Bank. Once completed, this highway will link Lagos to Dakar, creating a continuous transportation corridor along much of West Africa's Atlantic coastline. Although these projects are primarily designed to boost economic growth, they are already reshaping the region's geography. Secondary cities are expanding. New industrial zones are emerging. Strategic transport corridors are beginning to redefine patterns of urban development. And whenever transformation happens on this scale, investment is never far behind. This coastal corridor now functions as one vast logistical machine. In 2024, the port of Abidjan handled nearly 38 million tons of cargo, while the port of Lomé processed more than 32 million tons. Freight traffic continues to grow rapidly, increasing by 8% to 10% every year. Today, More than 50 million tons of goods move through this corridor annually, alongside nearly 5 million vehicles. On an average day, between 10,000 and 30,000 vehicles travel along this strategic route. Yet despite this impressive momentum, major structural bottlenecks continue to slow regional trade. A single truck can still spend up to 52 hours waiting at border crossings, turning what should be a 1,000-kilometer journey into a trip lasting nearly 10 days. Picture the scene at the Seam border between Benin and Nigeria. Long lines of trucks stretch for kilometers. Some are carrying rice, others transport cement or manufactured goods destined for neighboring markets. Drivers often spend days inside their cabs, cooking meals on small portable stoves while waiting for customs clearance. And border delays are only part of the challenge. Along many roads across the region, truck drivers and travelers must also pass through numerous checkpoints. Officially established for security purposes, these roadblocks sometimes become informal toll points that further delay the movement of people and goods. It is a striking paradox for a transport corridor serving nearly 200 million people across 5 countries, including around 35 million residents living in the major metropolitan areas directly connected by the route. And yet, despite these obstacles, another reality is quietly taking shape: a de facto regional integration. Every day, millions of people cross borders. Goods continue to circulate. Economies become increasingly interconnected. In many ways, this integration is advancing faster than government policies themselves. In other words, the corridor is already functioning as an integrated economic system, even if its institutions are still struggling to keep pace. This logistics revolution is also being accompanied by some of Africa's largest industrial projects. In Ghana, authorities have launched the ambitious Jomoro Petroleum Hub, located near the border with Côte d'Ivoire. Designed to transform Ghana into a regional center for oil refining and petrochemicals, the project will cover more than 8,000 hectares. Once completed, it is expected to process nearly 900,000 barrels of oil per day, a capacity even greater than the giant refinery developed in Nigeria by industrialist Aliko Dangote. If fully realized, the project could transform West Africa's Atlantic coast into one of the continent's leading energy hubs, while further strengthening the strategic importance of the Abidjan-Lagos corridor. But building infrastructure on this scale comes at a high price. African governments often borrow money at interest rates ranging from 7% to 12%, significantly higher than the global average. As a result, financing highways, ports, railways, and logistics corridors becomes far more expensive. As Serge Ekwe, president of the West African Development Bank, explains, debt is not the problem. The real issue is the cost of borrowing. Today, that challenge lies at the center of Africa's economic debate. In 2025, during a conference organized by the African Union in Lomé, political leaders and financial experts emphasized the urgent need to reform the international financial system in order to better support Africa's infrastructure needs. Transforming the Abidjan-Lagos corridor into a fully integrated economic corridor is therefore far more than a regional development project. It is a strategic investment in the future of West Africa, and potentially one of the defining urban development projects of the 21st century. In this context, the African Continental Free Trade Area could become a game changer. Its ambition is clear: increase trade within Africa, reduce barriers between countries, accelerate regional economic integration. But none of that will happen without modern infrastructure. Roads, ports, railways, logistics corridors. Without them, Africa's economic integration will remain more of an aspiration than a reality. Today, West African cities are no longer simply places of rapid growth. They have become strategic investment frontiers. Development banks, political and business elites, investment funds, global construction firms, and international consulting companies are all converging on these rapidly transforming metropolitan areas. Presidents present themselves as nation builders. International financial institutions back projects labeled as resilient and sustainable. Private investors search for the next high-growth market. This is no coincidence. As economic growth slows across much of the developed world, global capital is looking elsewhere for new opportunities. Across West Africa, construction cranes are becoming part of the skyline, from historic city centers to expanding suburban districts. For many investors, Africa now represents the last great frontier of global capitalism. Its cities are becoming direct extensions of the global economy. In Accra and Lagos, shopping malls, gated communities, luxury residential developments, and modern business districts continue to multiply. Lagos alone is now home to an estimated 12,000 millionaires, while a rapidly expanding middle class is fueling demand for affordable housing, new residential projects, and modern consumer services. Yet alongside these new developments, vast, informal neighborhoods continue to grow, revealing the striking contrasts that define the region's urban landscape. One unexpected indicator illustrates the scale of this transformation: cement consumption. Per capita cement use across much of West Africa remains well below the levels seen in industrialized economies, highlighting the enormous potential that still exists for construction, housing, and infrastructure development. But this race toward urbanization also raises a fundamental question: who governs these rapidly expanding cities? West African metropolitan areas often operate across multiple layers of authority: municipal, national, regional, and international. Decentralization reforms introduced during the 1990s created overlapping responsibilities that in many cases have slowed decision-making and delayed major infrastructure projects. Cities continue to grow at extraordinary speed. Institutions adapt much more slowly. In response, several metropolitan governments, including Cotonou, Lagos, Accra, and Lomé, have developed long-term urban strategies looking toward 2030. Yet many of these plans remain focused on individual cities, even though today's urban expansion increasingly extends far beyond municipal boundaries. The corridor functions as a connected network. Urban planning, however, remains fragmented. Many of these master plans are designed by international consulting firms using urban models developed for cities with far more stable growth patterns. But along West Africa's coastline, urban expansion often outpaces even the most ambitious projections. As a result, some infrastructure projects risk becoming outdated almost as soon as construction begins. The consequence is a growing number of large-scale flagship developments concentrated in specific locations rather than planned across the metropolitan system as a whole. Gradually, a new model of city building is emerging, one defined by iconic, ambitious, and visually spectacular projects. Projects designed to capture global attention, but sometimes disconnected from the everyday realities of the people who actually live there. Because building a city is about far more than constructing roads, bridges, and skyscrapers. It is also about creating a vision of the future. Across West Africa, cities are being transformed through an unprecedented wave of large-scale urban development. In metropolitan areas where poverty remains widespread, billions of dollars are now flowing into ambitious real estate, infrastructure, and technology projects. To compete for global investment, the African city of tomorrow must be innovative, sustainable, and technologically advanced. As a result, governments across the region are increasingly drawing inspiration from successful urban models around the world. Take Benin, for example. After taking office in 2016, President Patrice Talon launched an ambitious national reform program built around 45 flagship projects, many focused on urban transformation, new highways, modern sanitation systems, affordable housing, and the creation of an entirely new innovation city known as City. But political time moves quickly. With presidential terms limited to just 5 years, governments face constant pressure to deliver visible results before the next election cycle. To speed up implementation, Talon created specialized public agencies led by internationally trained Beninese professionals and supported by global consulting firms. In many cases, these development zones have become showcase territories, managed directly by the state and investors, with relatively limited involvement from elected local governments or civil society organizations. This model echoes several other flagship developments across Africa: Eco-Atlantic in Lagos, Konza Technopolis in Kenya, Kalamba New City in Angola. Standing on the sea wall of Eco-Atlantic, glass skyscrapers rise above the Atlantic Ocean. Behind them stretches the seemingly endless megacity of Lagos. But perhaps the most striking feature of this coastline is the extraordinary contrast. Modern office towers, luxury apartments, business districts, state-of-the-art infrastructure, all rising beside vast informal neighborhoods. At times, these futuristic developments appear almost surreal, as if a piece of Singapore had been transplanted onto the West African coast. In Benin, City, located just a few kilometers from the Nigerian border, aims to welcome 200,000 students, researchers, and entrepreneurs. The project was designed in partnership with Singapore-based Surbana Jurong, the same urban planning firm involved in major developments in Kigali. Urban ideas now travel globally. What is designed in Singapore increasingly shapes the future of Cotonou. But these developments also raise an important question. Who are these cities really being built for? For now, many of these flagship projects function primarily as showcases, designed to attract investors, multinational companies, and economic elites. Projects such as Eco-Atlantic in Lagos or Hope City in Accra have become powerful symbols of modernity and ambition. Yet the reality of urban life remains far more complex. Today's African city is evolving along two very different timelines. On one side stands the carefully planned city of spectacular megaprojects. On the other is the everyday city, built gradually by millions of residents through informal neighborhoods and incremental construction. It is within this tension that the future of the Abidjan-Lagos corridor will ultimately be decided. Because beyond the architectural renderings and glossy promotional videos, the real city continues to grow, creating an urban landscape unlike any other, futuristic in one neighborhood, organic in the next. Two cities, two rhythms, one shared future. Everywhere along this coastline, the transformation is already visible. In Abidjan, construction is everywhere. From the bridges spanning the Ibri Lagoon to the rapidly expanding suburbs stretching toward Bingerville, the city is growing at remarkable speed. Tower cranes dominate the skyline. New highways extend into emerging neighborhoods. Major infrastructure projects are reshaping the metropolitan landscape. But Abidjan is no longer growing in isolation. It is becoming part of something much larger, a 1,000-kilometer regional corridor connecting Abidjan, Accra, Lomé, Cotonou, and Lagos. Supported in part by the African Development Bank, this corridor has the potential to become the economic backbone of West Africa. Abidjan is no longer reacting to growth, it is planning for it. Several flagship projects illustrate this ambition. An 18-station urban metro system designed to reduce congestion. Tour F, expected to become the tallest skyscraper in Africa. A major expansion of the international airport. The modernization of the port of Abidjan, already one of the busiest ports in the region. An ambitious program to build 150,000 affordable housing units. The development of entirely new urban districts around Bingaville. Abidjan is becoming far more than a city. It is evolving into a regional hub, a center of commerce, a crossroads of trade, a gateway to West Africa. Meanwhile, demographic pressure continues to intensify in Lagos. Over just a few decades, the city's population has increased nearly 40-fold since Nigeria gained independence. By 2035, the metropolitan area could exceed 24 million residents. Every single day, around 5,000 people arrive. Intercity buses, shared taxis, migrants from every corner of Nigeria. Lagos absorbs them all. But Lagos is more than a rapidly expanding city. It is a living urban laboratory. During rush hour, major roads become giant parking lots. Street vendors weave through rows of stalled vehicles. Motorcycles zigzag through the endless traffic. And somehow, amid this carefully managed chaos, futuristic megaprojects continue to emerge. The most iconic is Echo Atlantic, a brand new city built directly on the Atlantic Ocean. More than 10 square kilometers of reclaimed land, millions of tons of sand, an 8.5-kilometer seawall, known as the Great Wall of Lagos, built to protect the coastline from erosion and rising sea levels. Its goal is clear: attract investors, global companies, and Africa's growing economic elite. But Lagos is also investing in the future of urban mobility. Projects such as the Blue Line Metro aim to improve transportation in one of the world's most congested cities. After decades of planning, that vision is finally becoming reality. Few places embody the contradictions of the Abidjan-Lagos corridor more clearly than Lagos. Ultra-modern, yet deeply informal. Economically powerful, yet under enormous pressure. Lagos is more than a city. It is energy in motion. At first glance, Togo may appear squeezed between its much larger neighbors, but that geographic position has become one of its greatest strengths. From Accra, it takes only a few hours by road to reach the border. Crossing into Lomé, the difference is immediately noticeable. Border procedures are relatively quick. Customs formalities are streamlined, and access to the city is remarkably efficient. With just 31 kilometers of coastline, Togo possesses one of the shortest coastlines in West Africa. Yet this apparent limitation has become a strategic advantage. Over the past 2 decades, the country has steadily positioned itself as one of the region's leading logistics hubs. At the heart of that strategy lies the port of Lomé. Built with capacity far beyond domestic demand, the port serves not only Togo, but also several neighboring landlocked economies. In a region often affected by political and logistical uncertainty, Togo has focused on 3 competitive advantages: efficient logistics, relatively reliable electricity, strong digital connectivity. The result has been steadily growing attractiveness for regional trade and international investment. Just a few dozen kilometers east of Lomé, Cotonou plays a different but equally strategic role. Located less than 80 kilometers from Lagos, the city sits at a vital crossroads between the Atlantic Ocean and Lake Nokoué. Today, Cotonou is home to around 700,000 people. Over the coming decades, however, its metropolitan population could exceed 5 million. To prepare for that growth, the government has launched a series of major infrastructure projects: the modernization of the port of Cotonou, a new 20-hectare logistics terminal, improved road access, and upgraded transport infrastructure. The objective is clear: remain competitive within an increasingly dynamic regional corridor. Authorities have also begun constructing a new maritime business center overlooking the port. The idea is to bring customs agencies, government offices, and logistics companies together in a single location, accelerating port procedures and improving the efficiency of regional trade. To reduce congestion, a new 37-kilometer bypass highway is also under construction. Once completed, it will divert through traffic away from downtown Cotonou, easing daily congestion for thousands of commuters traveling from rapidly growing suburbs such as Abomey-Calavi. At the same time, the city is investing heavily in resilience, coastal protection against erosion, digital infrastructure, large-scale real estate development. Cotonou is no longer content with being a gateway to West Africa. It aims to become one of the corridor's central economic hubs. Accra is evolving in a different but equally powerful way. The city is steadily expanding beyond its traditional boundaries. Its metropolitan footprint now stretches along the coast, gradually connecting with Sekondi, Takoradi, and above all, Kassoa. Located about 30 kilometers west of Accra, Kassoa has experienced one of the fastest urban transformations in Ghana. In the early 1980s, it was home to barely 3,000 residents. Today, nearly 500,000 people live there. Standing on a bridge overlooking the coastal highway, the transformation is impossible to miss. The city stretches toward every horizon. Rows of unfinished concrete houses, congested roads, improvised market stalls, street vendors lining busy intersections. Entire neighborhoods often emerge before roads, electricity, or running water have fully arrived. Here, urban growth is moving faster than urban planning. Every year, thousands of families relocate to Kassoa, attracted by more affordable land, lower housing costs, and easy access to the capital. Unlike Shanghai or Dubai, this city does not grow upward. It spreads outward, almost endlessly. Yet while this organic city continues expanding across the landscape, Central Accra is evolving along a very different path. Luxury residential developments, a revitalized waterfront, modern office towers, new financial districts. Two cities now exist side by side, one carefully planned for investors, the other built day by day by the people who call it home. Faced with mounting demographic pressure, Ghana's authorities are now considering far more ambitious solutions. In 2025, Ghanaian President John Dramani Mahama announced plans for an entirely new city designed to relieve pressure on Accra. The proposed development would be built on the Accra Plains around Bundasi, extending across three regions: Greater Accra, Eastern, and Volta. The new city would be connected to the capital by both a modern highway and a new railway line, creating an alternative center for future urban growth. At the regional level, another ambitious proposal is also taking shape. A coastal ferry network would connect Lagos, Cotonou, Lomé, Accra, and Abidjan, transporting passengers, freight, and vehicles while easing congestion along the increasingly overloaded coastal highway. Little by little, this coastline is no longer developing city by city. It is beginning to function as a single, integrated metropolitan system, where massive infrastructure projects coexist alongside thousands of smaller, everyday developments. Every resident builds the city in their own way, because across much of West Africa, urbanization is largely incremental. Families build their homes gradually, brick by brick, as their financial situation allows. But this steady expansion also comes with a rapid growth of informal settlements. According to a 2025 report by the Ghana Statistical Service, nearly 30% of Ghana's population, around 4.8 million people, live in informal housing. In parts of Accra, narrow alleyways wind between homes built from corrugated metal and concrete, where electricity and running water are often shared by multiple households. Individual plots remain construction sites for years. Each house represents both a long-term investment and a family's place within the city. Throughout the corridor, cement depots and hardware stores continue to multiply, reflecting an urbanization process that often moves faster than off. Yet these vulnerabilities are not only the product of recent urban growth, they are also rooted in history. The Abidjan-Lagos corridor still reflects the legacy of two very different colonial systems. On one side are the countries shaped by French colonial rule, Côte d'Ivoire, Benin, and Togo. On the other are the former British colonies, Ghana and Nigeria. Two economic cultures, and in many respects, two different approaches to development. Most importantly, two different monetary systems. One group shares the CFA franc, the other relies on independent national currencies. But this monetary divide could soon begin to change. ECOWAS has reaffirmed its plans to launch the ECO, a single West African currency, in 2027. If implemented, the ECO could reshape the monetary landscape of the region and give the Abidjan-Lagos corridor a new economic and monetary dimension. Côte d'Ivoire, Benin, and Togo all use the CFA franc. Created in 1945 under the Bretton Woods monetary system, the CFA franc continues to play a central role in much of West Africa's economy. In West Africa, it is managed by the Central Bank of West African States, BCEAO, and maintains a fixed exchange rate with the euro. €1 equals 655.96 CFA francs. This monetary stability offers several important advantages. It reassures investors, facilitates regional trade, and reduces the risk of currency crises. But stability also comes with trade-offs. Some economists, including Demba Musa Dembele, argue that the system reduces export competitiveness, encourages imports, and slows local industrial development. In other words, stability, but also dependency. History also teaches an important lesson. A rapidly growing population does not automatically create a powerful economy. Between 2000 and 2018, Sub-Saharan Africa recorded an average annual economic growth rate of 4.5%. Yet during the same period, GDP per capita increased by only 1.7%. Roughly 62% of that economic growth was absorbed by population growth itself. In simple terms, the population is growing faster than productivity. Across many cities in the Abidjan-Lagos corridor, urban expansion also remains only partially planned. Recurring floods in several neighborhoods of Abidjan reveal the growing limits of existing infrastructure under intense development pressure. In 2024, city authorities created a special 295-member urban enforcement brigade tasked with combating illegal construction and improving the management of public spaces. It is a clear sign that governance is struggling to keep pace with one of the world's fastest-growing urban regions. Urban planners also point to several major long-term challenges: rapid population growth, the expansion of informal settlements, high urban unemployment, overstretched public services, increasing vulnerability to climate change. At the same time, the region's economies remain heavily dependent on commodity exports. Oil in Nigeria, cocoa in Côte d'Ivoire, gold in Ghana. These resources have fueled economic growth, but they also expose the corridor to fluctuations in global commodity markets, making long-term diversification one of the region's greatest economic challenges. Without industrialization, without regional coordination, without effective governance, this extraordinary population density could become a liability rather than an advantage. As urban planner Daniel Hornweg explains, if this region develops effectively, it will become far greater than the sum of its individual cities. But if it develops poorly, an enormous share of its economic potential could be lost. Because what is happening here extends far beyond West Africa. The Abidjan-Lagos corridor may well become one of the defining urban transformations of the 21st century. Some researchers even believe that by the end of this century, this coastal strip could become the largest continuous urban settlement on Earth, home to nearly 500 million people. Between the glass towers of Eco-Atlantic and the informal neighborhoods of Agbog-Bloshi, this region captures the central paradox of West Africa: an extraordinary capacity to generate wealth, and an equally profound vulnerability. To observe the Abidjan-Lagos corridor today is to witness the birth of a megalopolis that could shape the 21st century. The future of urban civilization is being written here, right before our eyes. For investors, urban planners, business leaders, and policymakers, understanding this transformation is no longer simply a regional concern. It may be one of the best ways to anticipate the next great chapter of global urbanization. And this is not happening only in West Africa. Other major urban regions are also emerging across the continent, around Cairo and Alexandria in Egypt, between Johannesburg and Pretoria in South Africa, and within the rapidly growing Great Lakes urban hub, linking Nairobi and Kampala. Africa is now experiencing the fastest urban growth on the planet. By 2035, more than 50 African cities are expected to exceed 5 million residents, while several emerging urban corridors will rival the world's largest metropolitan regions. If the 20th century was defined by Silicon Valley, the 21st century may well be defined by the Abidjan-Lagos corridor, a megalopolis with the potential to reshape not only Africa, but the balance of the global economy itself.